mec, au fur et à mesure de sa chute, il se répète sans cesse pour se rassurer. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Mais l'important, c'est pas la chute. C'est l'atterrissage.
The film follows the protagonist's journey from suburbs to city in a single day, infused with tension and violence, creating a palpable sense of impending tragedy. Through a geographical and temporal contrast between daytime banlieue and nighttime Paris, the narrative follows a cyclical pattern depicting a loop of violence. As the protagonists navigate Paris, scenes escalate in violence, underlining their marginalization. Violence pervades the film from start to finish, revolving around a central motif, the gun. Introduced at the beginning of the movie, it recurs throughout the narrative, symbolizing Vince's desire for revenge. Vince, notably the most aggressive of the group, becomes the focal point of this violence, his possession of the gun making him as a volatile figure, a ticking time bomb. Obsessed with weaponry, he fantasizes about violence and carries the gun as a symbol of vengeance against the police. As we now delve into the nighttime scenes, the city transforms into a character, leading the protagonist from suburbia to urban chaos, symbolizing their struggles with unfamiliar cityscapes. The following scenes not only show how the trio navigates their environment, but how their environment, in turn, will play a role in the escalation of violence, particularly for Vince. The first night scene I will analyze takes place between 10 p.m. and midnight, where Vince and two fellow friends try to enter a bar but are refused entry. The scene starts with a still view of the three friends in front of the bar while they discuss the fact that they weren't allowed entrance. The deep depth of field allows us to clearly see the characters and the club in the background. The situation escalates when one character takes out his gun. We then simultaneously see a close-up of Vince's face on the left and the shooting of the bouncer happening on the right. The director used what's called a split diopter lens, which allows the foreground and the background of the shot to be in focus simultaneously, creating a very defined image. This choice allows us to gain more information from a single shot because it highlights the relationship between two subjects while creating a sense of uneasiness in the viewer. Right after the gunshot, we witness a white flash accompanied by a violent swishing sound. Kasavich uses this white flash effect at other moments in the movie, like when Vince shows the gun he has found. Vincendo argues that the impact of these sound image effects is to generate a sense of speed, of energy, as well as giving the impression of magic. Vince's direct gaze at the camera highlights the significance of this moment. Witnessing his friend commit violence likely fuels his desire to use a firearm against the police, reinforcing his belief in a violence as a solution. Yet, his visible distress when a gunshot is fired hints at vulnerability. Despite his anger-driven responses, Vince remains a young man grappling with frustration in his life. After missing their train back to the suburbs and wandering in the Parisian night, the trio ends up in what seems to be an empty shopping mall. It begins with a medium long shot view of the trio watching TV to a shot of the trio's back as they learn about the death of their friend Abdel. The camera then closes in on the multiple images of their friends on TV, while implementing a shot-reverse shot on Vince's face, letting us understand the importance of this moment for the character, who's been planning on getting revenge for his friend. This back and forth between the TVs and Vince gives the impression of the reporter trying to talk to him, trying to evoke more rage from him. The use of multiple TV screens evokes the imagery of prison bars, as if Abdel was resigned to his fate due to police brutality. Abdel's death is a pivotal moment for Vince, forcing him to confront his plans for revenge. Now, with Abdel gone, Vince has a concrete motive to use the gun he's been carrying. We then see the clock accompanied by the ticking sounds, increasing the tension in the spectator as Vince grows closer to enacting his promise. Hubert and Syed quickly realize that Vince is gone and frantically leave to try to find him. The camera then immediately flash cuts to Vince, staring menacingly at two police officers. The director again uses a short reverse shot between a medium close-up of Vince and the two officers. The two shots separates the spectator from the cops, presenting them as unmoved by their handling of crimes. The mise en scène also supports this idea, creating a binary opposition through the images in the background. Vince's background is considerably cleaner and less dilapidated than the cops' background, presenting their loyalty as destructive in their nature. Despite this imagery, the spectator's knowledge of the narrative subverts this portrayal. The cops are not necessarily a menace. Vince's demeanor is the one that is actually menacing. The director uses this scene to blur the lines between good and bad for the spectator. Even though we're aware that Vince is in the wrong, the time we've spent with him gives us a balanced perspective of his mindset. We then witness Vince shooting the cup, only to realize it was all in his head as he's pointing his finger in the form of a gun. The director uses this scene to show us Vince's understanding of murder as misinformed and exaggerated. In this dream scenario, the cups are actually flying through the window, shattering the glass behind it while flailing their arms. This depiction of death is like a cliché of death scenes in action movie. The camera movement further dramatizes this event, using a tracking low-angle medium close-up to follow one cup jumping back when shot until it cuts to a low-angle long shot of him actually crashing into the window. The low angle, while still framing the cups, is still attributed to Vince's presence into the scene, as it is on his side of the 100-degree axis, thus presenting him as the one with more power over the cups. Additionally, this recalls the scene at the beginning of the movie where Vince rehearses in front of the mirror while making a pretend gun with his hand. The director uses the sum of these scenes to depict Vince as stuck in his fantasy. He's showing an incomplete understanding of reality and how he could actually react. The following scene takes place towards the end of the night when the trio runs into a group of skinheads and starts fighting with them. We first see one of the many shots of the trio walking in the gloomy streets of Paris with a still camera while the characters walk towards us. They then turn a corner and end up in front of a group of skinheads. While the trio has only been in the city for a couple of hours, they face many threatening situations, reinforcing the fact that they don't belong in the city. The fact that the skinheads are just around the corner reinforces the fact that danger is, literally, hiding behind every corner. The tension quickly escalates when a fight breaks out and Vince takes out his gun and points it at one of the skinheads, played by the director himself. The others quickly leave, leaving the one skinhead in the hands of Vince, who drags him through what seems to be an interior courtyard. Vince initially seems excited about the possibility of killing a skinhead and finally using his gun, while Hubert, consistent with his character's desire to avoid violence, looks at Vince with a look of disapproval. When Hubert asks Vince if he's thinking of killing him, Vince replies, as if provoked to prove that he's intending on using that gun. Hubert seems overtaken by the situation, which takes on ridiculous proportions to the point of encouraging Vince to kill the skinhead, as if the absurdity of this violence could only end in an equally senseless gesture.
Il y a de bons flics, tu vois, mais un bon skin, c'est un skin mort. Tire. Vas-y, shoot-le. Vas-y, tire, tu nous as fait chier toute la journée. Vas-y, tire maintenant, putain. Tire.
The close-up shots of the badly beaten-up skinhead, followed by a close-up of Vince, builds up the tension in the scene, signifying us of the importance of this moment for the character's development. Vince is at the end of the wall. After expressing and thinking all day about his desire to kill a cop, he is faced with the opportunity to finally kill someone, to move from words to action.
Tire, putain! Abdel est mort maintenant. Tu peux le venger. Venge Abdel! Vas-y, tire!
Despite Hubert's encouragement and the tension build-up, Vince is unable to pull the trigger and lets the skinhead go. A major change takes place within him, faced with the reality that he is not as fearless and heartless as he's been pretending to be. Through these three scenes, we witness Vince's descent into violence, illuminating his struggle with identity, agency, and morality in the face of societal pressures and personal trauma. They underscore the film's broader themes of alienation, disillusionment, and the search of meaning in a world fraught with division and conflict. As we reflect on the impact of these scenes, we're compelled to ask, how do our environments shape our identities and choices? Are we, like the characters, products of our circumstances, or do we possess the agency to transcend them?